This is the Life's Better podcast, and my name is Jonathan. This is Josh. Hey. And one of the things that we discuss on this podcast is how life is so much better with God, community, and purpose. And there is an annual event that takes place really around the country, probably even around the world, that becomes, in my opinion, like this really cool incubator for all three of these things just to thrive.
Okay.
Like growing your relationship with God, finding rich community, and at the same time, really discovering sometimes purpose in your life that you didn't even know you were lacking in the first place. That's what we're going to be talking about actually in this episode. And Josh, since you kind of know where we're headed in this episode, what is this great event that happens every single year?
I assume camp?
It's camp. It's camp.
So worldwide. This is exciting.
This is absolutely something that has taken place in ministries that I've had, even in Eswatini, and I hear happens in other parts of the world.
That's awesome.
I don't know if every church and Christian community sends their kids off to camp, but certainly it happens here in the United States. Yeah, the good ones, the good ones. So we're going to be talking about this, and our hope is that as we talk about our experience with camp and the life change that's happened in our lives, and also in the lives of our students and the ministries that we lead here, our hope is that it would bring you a lot of joy and maybe even the potential of sending your kids, or maybe you go yourself to camp.
Yeah.
If nothing else, maybe volunteer. Or one of the really neat things that happens around here is, you've got older folks that don't necessarily want to spend an entire week doing stuff, but they see the value in it.
Yeah.
And so they help scholarship kids that would otherwise not be able to afford
Huge
it.
blessing. Huge blessing. Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little Q&A about our own camp experiences. To make it fun, we're going to be drawing questions to ask each other from a little basket. But if we want to make it like a game, because we usually play a game, we're going to allow, if you think you know the person's answer, to answer for them before. Now, if you don't, it's no big deal. But if you get it right, you get a point. And there's no like prize. There's no gold, silver, or bronze here, but
how would we know each other?
Fun. What's that?
Know each other's camp experience.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to go and ask you first, Josh.
Cool.
All right. This question is, what is typically the most challenging aspect of camp for you? Okay.
Okay.
So I think I may know this one.
I think you do too.
I don't think it's the camp experience itself, like when you're there. I think the most challenging aspect of camp for you is the lead up, the prep, the organizing, let's get all the pieces in place, and it just leads to a lot of like, okay, I gotta get it all together. And then once you're in it, you're just like, okay, well, whether I'm ready or not, we're rocking and rolling. Am I wrong? Am I right?
No, you're spot on. I actually didn't know if I should make it about like something that's at camp or not, and so I wrote both.
Okay.
I wrote,
I'll give myself a half a point because
I think that counts.
Okay.
I mean, that's easily the most challenging is the prep, and also just I wrote the mental battle right before camp, like leading up to like don't worry about just give it to God, like it's God's, like it's not you, and all of this stuff. And so the prep definitely is my least favorite part of all of it.
At camp, what's the most challenging?
At camp, do you want to guess? As a not just like a camp helper, but like dean of camp. What do you think is the most challenging?
Maybe the unforeseen and maybe even foreseen relational issue tensions that oftentimes happen. Maybe it's a crisis that a student's having and you're like, oh my gosh. Or maybe it's we have to win at all costs and so we're going to treat people poorly. Those type of things that oftentimes happen. I don't know. Maybe that's too broad.
So I wrote just staying on schedule.
Okay, that's true. Yeah,
it is. But those are a whole, they're part of the reason why it's hard to stay on schedule is you're losing your voice trying to yell to get kids at a certain spot. And luckily our kids typically are really excited about camp, but at the same time that creates they're not so quick to listen. And so I'm shouting and games don't go as fast as I'd like for them to. And then it's just we're so oh, it's already lunch. Like what's happening? And you don't have time for everything you wanted to do.
Did you ever have a camp experience as a student where there was a bullhorn and they were always leading through the bullhorn and stuff? Have you ever tried to do that?
I've not.
It's awful. Okay. It's absolutely awful.
So you don't like doing
that?
No,
it's very off-putting to me as a communicator. Some people can do it well. I've never been able to figure that thing out.
The one thing I do like that camp has is the bell. And
Yes.
everybody just recognizes when the bell happens, we go to the bell.
Yeah.
And so it's not like I have to hunt everyone. Like we still wait for everybody to count, but like
Right.
most of the time everybody comes
Yeah.
when the bell rings.
I
So,
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
All right. So you get a point.
Thank you.
Let's see about this one. So for you, this year or in past years,
Okay.
have you seen students move toward finding meaningful purpose for their life?
Okay, so for me, I think it's threefold. I think.
Can I guess?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
Now you got. Now you
I'm
know
like,
it's
I'm
like
in,
three
I'm in game
things.
mode. I want to go.
Darn.
So let's see. For you, I mean, you're all about this too, and I think that we both just get really, really excited about it. Like this year was really, really exciting because we saw a lot more baptisms life decision
Yes.
maybe than we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I think that goes along with like what maybe was the theme, like this connection piece to God and like him wanting to speak to you. But this year especially, I felt like there was more like baseline, I've not really made this commitment before decisions. And that was really exciting, at least for me. But
Yeah.
I'm interested to know if that was a part of year 3.
I'm going to give you at least a half a point.
Okay,
on
at
that
least
one.
a half a point.
But I
Okay.
would say, yeah, that first component is, when you think about purpose in life, until you get that, hey, you know what, I'm going to be living my life for God, like purpose can be found in so many areas. And so once that component of, hey, I'm putting my faith in Christ, that's when a new identity, or the old is gone, the new has come, takes place.
Yeah.
And then probably the other aspects of this would be, for students kind of taking on this role of leading their friends and oftentimes even their family to Christ. We've got quite a few students that they come from families that, mom and dad are not connected with Christ. And so there's this new mission of, well, the way I communicate, the way that I live, the way that I interact with mom and dad, I want to influence them to Christ. And then on top of that too, I think even those students, and we've had this in the past and maybe even started percolating a little bit this year, would be maybe making ministry a priority long term, maybe even as a career, and having that purpose of, you know what, I think God's calling me to do this full time.
Yeah.
We got students like Lily and even Zach, who's, well, some of you know these students, some of you don't. But anyway, students that have done that. So I would say those three aspects, that's how I've seen camp really establish that purpose for students' lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so half a point, you comfortable with that one?
Sure.
Okay, I'm up by a half. All right, question for you, Josh, is what is the worst thing you've ever eaten at camp? So I'm guessing it's not anything that Junior has ever prepared, and if it is, I would say don't like share that. Don't share that. Junior I think watches. So I'm thinking maybe some weird food challenge, maybe in your kid days as a camper. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and it was like some Fear Factor eat dog food type thing.
So I never got called up for those.
Okay.
So I never had to experience that. I wrote down, and this is like, I apologize if anybody who makes this is watching. I don't even know if they actually do. I think they order it.
Okay.
But I really don't like, everybody loves it. I really don't like the camp pizza that
is
we
that
have on
right?
the first night.
Okay.
Even this last time, like there was bits that like, I was like, isn't it really like cooked all the way? Like it's kind of like very doughy. Like,
You know what? That's
I don't-
sad because I genuinely
do you really like the pizza?
not always.
Okay.
I feel like at least at the camp that we go to, it's improved each year. Like I
okay.
remember the first year being like, what? Are we calling this pizza? But then this year, I felt like, no, this is I can't not call this pizza. Like this is pizza.
I'm very like I hate like cafeteria.
Yeah, it's got that
pizza.
vibe. It's certainly
You know,
got that vibe.
like I've never like I'm kind of a picky when it comes to like I've had really good pizza and
Sure.
it's like this isn't pizza. Like that's my problem. But
Okay.
Anyway.
No points awarded for me on that one. I mean, if you're thinking the worst thing that you've eaten at camp is pizza,
like,
that's pretty good. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like the old adage, like there's never like there's not a bad pizza. There is
Right.
bad pizza. Like in my opinion.
And
But-
it's camp pizza.
and it's cafeteria bulk made for
Yeah,
hundreds of kids
Yeah,
pizza.
yeah.
All right. I'm interested to know. I
Okay.
have no idea what this would be. What is the coolest thing that has ever happened at a camp experience for you.
I'll let you try.
I'm going to just kind of throw out a silly one because I remember this experience. I'm going to say it was holding that really cute girl's hand at camp that one time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this one's a little bit of a cheat for me.
Okay.
So the coolest experience that happened at camp wasn't actually a camp that I was a part of, but I can't not have this one. So my wife, she did not know Christ, didn't hear the gospel message until she got to high school, and someone scholarshiped her to go to camp. She heard the gospel and she gave her life to Christ. So for me, like the coolest thing that has ever happened in the history of camp is my wife, my future wife, giving her life to Christ.
Yeah. I knew that. That's really good. Yeah.
All right, for you, Josh. Did you enjoy camp more when you were a student or more now that you are an adult?
What do you think, Jonathan?
Ooh, 50-50. I've got good odds with this one. I'm going to say the actual week of camp, not the prep, but the week of camp you enjoy more as an adult.
You'd be right. Yes. Well done. No, yes. I wrote that not only is it like just like really cool to be a part, and it's I'm much more close with God now than I was when I was a kid going to these things. I loved it as a kid because it was just like, oh, I get to do all these fun things, and it was made for me.
Yeah.
But like getting to serve and getting to see that in well beyond just me, but like dozens, if not like almost at least 100, if not more kids now.
Yeah.
Like it's just cool, you know.
Yeah.
And to get to see life change, get to see like, and then the prolonged impact. Like even just this last week, I'll shout her out, but like Lily told us that she's taken a job as a youth pastor where she is, and to know that like, you know, camp had some impact on her giving that her life to God is really cool, you know, like, and yeah, it's way better as an adult.
Yeah, that whole, it is better to give than to receive. And so at camp, when you're a kid, it's all about receiving, but there is something, you know, you nailed it. I agree. For me too, I would say I probably enjoy it more as an adult.
Come back, kids. It's even better when you're an adult. All right, so next one. So I think you have 2 points. I have a point.
I've got 2.
What is the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you at camp?
I was kind of hoping.
This is tough.
I was hoping that. So I was hoping honestly, like you were gonna get this one because I think I know what yours might be, and I don't necessarily want to share mine. So
maybe.
No,
okay.
It's okay though. What do you think mine is? I don't even know if you know this actually.
I probably don't. You pooped your pants while a staffer at a camp is going to be my guess.
You know what? That's a good one. I'm so glad that never happened. No points on that one. No, I think it was my sophomore year of high school. I got kicked out of camp. Like,
wow,
you have to leave. Your parents have to come and get you. And it was for something. Even to this day, it's kind of like a. Wow, that was really a high punishment for what I did. Are you familiar with atomic sit-up? The atomic sit-up? I'm not going to go into details as to what an atomic sit-up is, but it's basically just kind of like a goofing around, hazing like thing that you do with dudes. And so I volunteered to do that, you know, on some kid, and the dean of the whole camp was like looking in the window, whatever, and was like, I want to talk to you, and guess what? Go call your parents. And it was like. Wow. Okay, so that happened. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was super embarrassing. You know, kind of like one of those like, wow, I'm just carrying that shame of like, oh, I can't believe it. You know what I mean? It wasn't the best.
Yeah. Maybe I'm way too laid back as a dean, but like,
you have to be doing something pretty egregious, right?
Yeah. Like, and especially like pranks. Like, I'm kind of about I'm like. If it's destructive or awful, like it's like, okay, let's go talk.
You don't want to hurt anyone, and you don't want to like destroy property. But outside of those things, as long as it doesn't escalate.
Even this last year, like they trashed the bathrooms, and like some really important people were coming to camp that morning, and I just pulled them off to the side. I was like, ha, super funny. Now go clean it, please.
Yeah.
And there was nothing else that happened because of that.
And in the meantime, they had this really epic shared experience that they're going to remember forever about camp. Like, oh, we got the girls. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot worse, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
All
sorry,
right.
no point on that one.
It's okay.
Oh, by the way, I'm not going to get a point on this one, but can I guess yours?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I know that you broke your nose at least once or twice, and I think it was at camp. One, you plowed into a pole, and the other one was someone jumped on your back and you face planted and broke your nose. Were those the ones?
One of those was not at camp.
Okay,
It was just a youth experience, but the fell on concrete. My entire face is scabbed for the rest of the trip, and my nose is broken. And on top of that, my girlfriend was there and broke up with me on the drive home. So like all of it was just like not the best of experiences.
Yeah, that is an awful one. All right, what about this one? What is the best thing you've ever eaten at camp? Man, you get the easy ones. What's the best thing you eaten at camp?
You wanna guess?
Oh yeah, I forgot I'm supposed to guess.
This is gonna be hard.
I shouldn't ask for a hint, but I'm gonna go ahead and say, has it been at our camp?
Yeah.
Or okay.
I'll limit it to, because I don't remember what I ate at camps when I was a kid. If I had Junior there, maybe I would remember.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, this one's tough because there's a lot of good things. I'm gonna go. Man, was it the steak night thing?
No, that's a really good guess.
Darn it.
So this goes back to Junior. You're just awesome, and since last year, Emily and I have used this as a side dish for like at least once a week meals, and it's just zucchini and squash tossed with onions.
Yes.
Like fried.
He does a great job with that.
It's so good.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
we didn't realize, because we talked to him like, what's your recipe? He's like, oh, it's just like a little bit of oil and onions and zucchini and squash and like some garlic seasoning if you want to throw it on there. And we were like, what? Like we cook zucchini squash all the time, but onions just elevate it.
It
and
absolutely
it's incredible.
does. I agree.
It's incredible.
Well, I'm still leading
Number one.
you.
Yeah, you're destroying me right now. So this is when I need points right here.
You do.
What has been your most meaningful moment with God at camp?
You might know this one.
Crud. I'm assuming this might not be our camps.
I will allow that as a hint I'll give you.
Okay.
It's not at ours.
Okay, I didn't think so. I'm gonna say you felt called into the ministry at camp.
Yeah, nailed it.
Okay.
So it was not when I was a student, but when I was volunteering I guess it was in between my freshman and my sophomore year of college, and it was that, not just a ministry, it was just like this call to servanthood, and I didn't know exactly what that would be, but it was like, I'm open now.
And you were serving at that camp.
Yeah.
And felt that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
for
really
sure.
cool. I mean, I think there's tons of stories about people who go to serve at a camp and almost get more out of it than they gave.
Yeah.
Eric maybe being even a really good example from last year, like directly after camp was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And now he's a youth pastor all the way out in Colorado, which stinks. Like it almost made me think I need to be careful about who I asked this year's camp.
Because they may leave.
Because they might go and be youth pastors somewhere. I'm just kidding. That's a really good thing.
That's cool. All right, you are just a half a point behind me. What is your favorite camp game?
There's so many games.
You're the game dude. This is almost impossible. Okay, I'm just gonna go with the one that you've led a few times, and I think you really enjoy seeing the creativity of the students, and that's the freeze frame movie deal.
That's what I wrote. I wrote movie snapshot. It might not be like my favorite game to like play, like or anything like that, but like it's easily like I love like seeing all of the people participate.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really hard to do at camp.
No kidding.
But yeah, no, super fun, and judging it is like the best, like going around, and like I think some of our leaders just get genuinely excited about being able to guess what, like Emily's definitely that way. She'll run up and be like, this is this movie!
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she's so pumped about it. So.
I'm pretty awful at guessing. I mean, every once in a while I'll be like, oh, it's just so clear what the movie is, but usually I have to like listen, like, what is it? Oh, now I see it. But they're all the students seem to, I mean, their creative energy just comes out.
Oh yeah,
for
for sure. And they like luckily they've seen a lot of movies. Otherwise, that would be a really tough one. I feel bad for the kids that just have to take a. What do I do here?
I'll hold the ball, whatever that means.
All right. This year or in past years, have you seen camp build healthy and meaningful community?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna guess.
I forgot.
Oh, you're good. You're
Just
good.
to let you guess.
I will say that I think camp is a really good example of a place where students who are kind of on that fringe become a part of the youth group, become a part of the church. Their parents will come and visit, even, or even like volunteers that are kind of just newer-ish and trying to find their place. Like they'll come, they'll serve, and then they're from that point on, like they feel like a huge part of our church, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That is how I've seen it.
That is hands down my answer. The only thing that I would add to that would be I really also love seeing that they make the connections to do life with each other outside of the church. You know, it's okay, we had this camp experience. Yeah, we're going to see each other on Wednesday. Yeah, we're going to see each other on Sunday. But let's go do this and let's go do that. It's like, okay, cool. Christians doing life together on a regular basis now, allowing themselves to influence each other really well.
I thought it
was huge.
This last year, like we saw baptisms happen at multiple churches around, and they painted a beautiful picture of like what the church should be, which is like they would not only go to their home church, but then they would go and visit, and they'd support one another, and all be wearing their camp shirts, and like that was cool, you know, like just to know that they were super pumped for each other. And like baptism can be scary. I've known that like more and more. Like
Everybody's
students are
staring at you. Yeah.
But like knowing like, oh, I got my crowd, like that's cool.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I beat you by half a point, I think.
Half a point.
But that was pretty close. What we're going to do now is both Josh and I were communicators at the camp that Josh programmed and led. But I'm going to allow Josh to not only introduce the theme of our week of camp, but then also highlight some of the main talking points to your night that you communicated, and then I'll do the same with mine. And so our hope is that even if you're not into camp, maybe you'll draw something meaningful for your own prayer and connection with God. So.
Yeah, so this year's theme might have been a little more like cut and dry compared to previous years, where it's like faith throughout chaos, or, you know, at the table with God. Like this one was just prayer. And my heart behind that really came, and I shared this with the students on night one, from discussing with students over the last like year, just this, you know, they're on fire for God, and like a ton of them like want to be in their Bible. They can't get enough of church and worship and like all of this stuff. And yet when we're in small groups and I'm like, hey, like who wants to pray for us? They're like all the hands go down. Or they'll communicate if I call on them, they're like, I can't do that. I'm too scared to. Or even if they're willing, because I have some students that are like, yes, and then I call on them and they're like, how do I do this? Like, and it's just, that hurt my heart, because if there's this fire for God, prayer can be this huge like component, at least it is in my life, for keeping me attached to that vine. And the fact that I knew, you know, and not only that, but like Emily this last year had gone through just this complete renewal of her prayer life. So much so that I felt convicted, like watching her, and I was like, I need to get better at this. And then to know how important it is for us and how we've seen God in so many ways, and like have all of these testimonies just from the last year. If I didn't have prayer, I wouldn't necessarily know if I would have those. And like, I want that for them. And so that was like the heart of everything. And so with that, how do we teach these kids how to pray? What do we teach them isn't how to pray? Because I think there's some preconceived notions of like how I'm supposed to do it or what it's for. We would get questions beforehand like, okay, what is the purpose of it? Like, why in the world do I do it if God is like in control of everything? Like, what good is it to tell him about these things, you know? And so we started there, and the best way I knew how was actually from a series that I had gone through all the way back in college with the church that I interned at. They did a whole like sermon series on the Lord's Prayer, and it was a long one. Like I think you do a good job of like camping in a place and then moving on to something so that like people don't get too bogged down with the same. I think we were legit in this for like half a year.
Wow.
And it was just on prayer. Wow. And they had guest speakers come in, and so much so that like it was cool because, you know, my night, which was night one, we covered a lot of Matthew 6, and then we got to the Lord's Prayer, which was like the focus of the week, and I only took the first two words. completely stole that from them, but they actually did it even worse. Like one guy did hour, legit did a whole sermon on the fact that
Wow.
it is a invitation to do it together.
Yeah.
And then the next guy took Father, and it
That's
was just
cool.
like they went deep in this. And so I didn't go as deep as they did. But I just want to read really, really quickly Matthew, a portion of Matthew 6. And so this is kind of what the kids would have gotten, and they would have heard from me. I got up and I shared Matthew 6. Sorry. Here we go. 6:5. And it says, "Whenever you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, because they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by people. Truly I tell you, they have their reward. But when you pray, go into your private room, shut your door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, don't babble like the Gentiles, since they imagine they'll be heard for their many words. Don't be like them, because your Father knows the things you need before you ask them." And then I took, "Therefore, you should pray like this: Our Father." And that was it. That was where I stopped. But we kind of took those and we broke down, like, okay, what do these mean? Especially in our small groups, we asked the question: is it even okay to like pray as a group if this is what Jesus is saying? And we're talking to, I think we all hopefully got to the point, and I communicated that it's really the heart behind it that Jesus is talking about. It's not about like you looking the part, like the hypocrites is what he said do. It's not about you practicing your righteousness so that people see you and be like, oh wow, they're so incredible at praying. It's also not about like just saying the right words. And I love that he not only says like, don't keep on babbling, but then he says, your Father already knows what you need. And so for me, when I hear that, it establishes that, okay, prayer isn't even really about the words that I'm communicating to God. It's not even really about like the needs that I'm bringing before him, even though those are important. It's really about this, and the Lord's Prayer communicates this, and the rest of Scripture communicates this. It's really about that connection piece, this intimacy, this relationship with God, that he wants us to enter into his presence and be able to talk to him. And that I told our students in our small group, one of the most important things I ever learned was that somebody communicated, God doesn't really need anything from you. And when we apply that to everything, we start to realize that he's established all of the things that he has in our life and the things he wants us to obey in and the things that he wants us to do for us. And so prayer, if we apply that to prayer, is like, okay, God doesn't actually need me to talk to him. He wants me to talk to him. But okay, well then what is the point of it? If he doesn't need it, then I need it somehow. And then, so what do I get out of prayer? Okay, well, I get a connection to that vine. I get to come into my dad's presence, which was our Father. And then the rest of the night's kind of covered, okay, what are the things that we're getting? Which yours was great. Like I'll let you talk about yours, but like even pieces like Dustin, where he was like, forgive us as we forgive, and lead us not into temptation. My dad and my grandfather sharing, give us today our daily bread. It's this communication to God of our needs and the things that we need to see in our life, but at the same time, it's a reminder of he's in control. He's taken care of these things. I can trust him. He's a good father. And he wants me to come and sit in his presence, and that's helpful for me. It's not like God has to have this. It's I actually need this time. And so that was a lot, but
good.
I hope that established, because on top of that, we had morning sessions with Francis Chan sharing through a video series about prayer and kind of hitting those like hard questions.
Yeah.
I liked that we at least got the ball rolling each morning with, okay, let's think about some of these like really difficult to answer questions, like, okay, why does God answer some of my prayers and not all of them? Do I really have any influence over God's will? But then the nights were covering this chapter that we kept going back to. But do you want to share some of yours?
Yeah, that's a great way to start it off. Josh actually stole the first part of mine, which I thought I was supposed to start with Our Father, but
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sure, even going back, I was like, no, he probably told me that, but that's cool. My night was night 2, and I got those first couple of verses in the Lord's Prayer, which is, again, like this wonderful framework for how we're supposed to have this conversation with God. But I really went back to like the decisions that are taking place when we're praying, and we just kind of had some fun with it, looking at how, as adults, the typical adult makes 30 to 35,000 decisions every single day, and some of those are just silly decisions like, okay, am I gonna brush my teeth at home, or am I gonna wait until the podcast when I get home, or when I get to work?
Yeah.
We all make those types of decisions, and and so there's small and there's big decisions that we make every single day. But we focused in on the 3 greatest decisions that you'll ever make. And the reason why we did is because at least 2 of them are tucked into the Lord's Prayer very, very specifically. And the third is kind of indirectly connected there. We had some fun with that one. But the first greatest decision is, okay, who's going to be my master? Which sounds super weird because the obvious answer is no one. No one's going to be my master. Why would I? But we can't fool ourselves. Someone or something will be our master. And we see this all the way back at the pages of creation where God says, I've created you. I am here for your joy. Will you allow me to be your master? And that's when the serpent slithers up and says, actually, you know what? You can eat of that tree and you're not going to die. You'll become like God. The temptation being, you can become your own master, and unfortunately humanity decided to take that route, and we've been struggling with this role of who's going to be our master ever since. A lot of people decide that they're going to allow money to be their master. Others, it's relationships and people, and sometimes even family, a substance, pleasure, whatever it is, we struggle with this. And so the way that Jesus, again, frames that conversation with God actually begins with that master component. It's the Our Father in heaven, hallowed or holy is your name. And this is less about like the formal greeting, like these are the exact words that you're supposed to use, but instead it's the declaration that He is the one who is your master. And so it's you are perfect, you are holy, you are worthy of my worship and my praise, and I'm beginning my day and I'm beginning my conversation with you recognizing this.
Yeah.
And so we talked a little bit about what that would look like, but then we moved on to the second component, which is your mission. So the 2 greatest decisions that you'll make in life are who's your master, and then second is, okay, what is my mission? William Barclay at one point said that there are 2 great days in a person's life. It's the day that you're born, and it's the day that you discover why you were born. What is my mission? And so again, tucked away in the Lord's Prayer is this component where Jesus is really forcing us to say, okay, what is your mission? And that comes from, okay, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Okay, Master, but then it goes into your kingdom. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You're having to ask the question, okay, am I going to make my life mission about building my kingdom, or am I going to be making it about building His kingdom? And the great thing is, once you've solved that first component of master, then it becomes pretty easy. It becomes easy as, okay, you first. Your kingdom first. My kingdom can come second, you first. And then even prayer itself becomes less about, okay, trying to get God on our timetable, trying to get God on our kingdom building mindset, and more about prayer focusing on, okay, what do you want from me, Lord? And so we even challenge the students to really be thinking through in prayer, Lord, what is my mission in life? Where do you want to guide me? Where do you want to lead me? What do you want me to do for you? The big things, the small things, and then talk to Him on a regular basis about those things, particularly if you're using the Lord's Prayer as a framework. And then the third one, this is the one we were kind of silly with, because it's indirectly in the Sermon on the, in the Lord's Prayer. But that verse 11 says, "Give us this day our daily bread." And so if someone's asking for bread, if someone's asking for a meal, if someone wants dinner, that means that they're really hungry, right? They want something, that they're hungry. And so I kind of tongue in cheek said, okay, some of you are really hungry for this third big decision in your life, and that's the decision of who will be my mate.
Yeah.
So we've got master, we've got mission, and then the third greatest decision you'll probably ever make in life is, okay, who am I gonna actually link my life to with my mate, my marriage partner? And so we talked through how we probably shouldn't be in a hurry to make that decision happen. And in that, you probably shouldn't give your heart to like 50 people on your way to eventually finding that mate. But then the big takeaway probably was just more of a, hey, how about in your regular prayer time, how will you talk to God about that? This is a huge decision for you. And so be talking to God about, how can I become the husband? How can I become the wife that I need to be for my future mate so that we can go on mission for our master? And then at the same time, be praying for that individual that they will become who they need to be in the relationship as well. And so that was kind of the focus.
That was really good, because what teenager isn't thinking about that?
Yeah.
So no, it was great.
Yeah, shooting fish in the barrel when you start talking about what mate. Oh, hey, I wasn't paying attention to the first two, but I'll start paying attention now.
No, I loved it too, because that's probably my favorite part of the Lord's Prayer, because we've talked about like with other things how important framework is, and it's like just very clear that Jesus throws in this is really important. Before we get even any needs, anything that you're bringing, like that you're asking God to do, like let's establish that He's Lord.
Yeah.
And that I'm on mission for you. And if I'm praying that way, like anything that I come with, like that I'm anxious about, because He says bring all of your, cast all your anxiety on Him, or anything that you're bringing and you're like, this is a great need, like I really need to bring this before God. Like if you start with that, all of a sudden this weight of, oh, it's my responsibility to take on these things starts to lift. Because it's like, wait, no, you're Lord, I'm on mission for you.
Yes.
And you're going to supply the things I need,
That's perfect.
And yeah, no, it was great. And honestly, seeing students slowly but surely like get this like just confidence of this is what I'm supposed to do.
Sure.
This is how I should talk to God was really cool.
Yeah, it's been nice even for my boys who were at camp, just kind of circling back and be like, hey, these are some of the things we covered. Hey, how's prayer life going right now? What are some of the same things that you're talking to God about, and just continuing that on. And I hope you've been able to have lots of conversations here with other students about that too.
Yeah. One of the questions was like, what was like one of the biggest takeaways from this year or previous years? And I mentioned everyone else but her night. Emily spoke, and that was like, no offense to you or any of my other speakers, that was the first one. Like that was my locked in. Like I want Emily to speak final night, and she was terrified of that. She was not on board for that as quickly as I had said.
Meaning being the closer.
Yeah. She was not excited. But I said this before. Like she went through a renewal of her prayer life through this thing that she had been reading, this book that she had read by this person who had gone through the same thing, and then bought her journal and worked through that over the last year. And I've seen through her just the importance of recording prayers, and specifically answered prayers, and making sure that you go back and you thank God for these, and just what thankfulness can do in a person's life when they choose to remember. And so she gets up there and just not only has her and did that a lot better than what I did at Fall Creek Falls, where she was just sharing these are the things that I've seen God do this last year that have meant a lot in my life. These are the things I was praying about, and these are how God answered them. Yeah. And then to hear kids say, I really want to do that. Yeah. I really want to do that. Yeah. I want to get my own journal. I want to go home and I'm going to start one. And then the week after camp, having kids send me pictures of, here's my journal and I've started it.
That's awesome.
It just made my heart happy, because it was okay, you guys are taking, and some of those kids, I won't name names, but some of those kids were the same kids that were saying, I don't know how to pray. I'm too scared to pray. And they're like, I have a journal.
That's so rewarding.
And I was like, yes, okay. that was the hope, And sometimes you have a picture of what you want camp to do, and that was it, you know. And a lot of times it doesn't go exactly how you had in your head, and God does it with it what He wants. But that one was I saw it, we did it, and now it's happening, and it's cool.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
I wanted to share that too.
Well, If you are a student, hopefully this excites you about being a part of camp if you weren't already, or just being excited about next year. If you're an adult who wants to volunteer, if it's not at our camp, maybe some other camp. If you're just really old and you're crusty, but you have a pen and a checkbook, maybe you want to go ahead and just scholarship a few kids and really just change lives. Don't forget that life is so much better with God, community, and purpose.